Mount Everest was most recently established in 2020 by the Nepali and Chinese authorities. Mount Everest attracts many climbers, including highly experienced mountaineers. There are two main climbing routes, one approaching the summit from the southeast in Nepal and the other from the north in Tibet. While not posing substantial technical climbing challenges on the standard route, Everest presents dangers such as altitude sickness, weather, and wind, as well as significant hazards from avalanches and the Khumbu ice fall. As of 2019, over 300 people have died on Everest, many of whose bodies remain on the mountain. The first recorded efforts to reach Everest summit were made by British mountaineers, as Nepal did not allow foreigners to enter the country at the time. The British made several attempts on the North Ridge route from the Tibetan side. After the first reconnaissance expedition by the British in 1921 reached 7,000 meters, 7 porters were killed in an avalanche on the descent from the North Col. The 1924 expedition resulted in one of the greatest mysteries on Everest to this day. George Mallory and Andrew Irwin made a final summit attempt on the 8th of June but never returned, sparking debate as to whether or not they were the first to reach the top. They had been spotted high on the mountain that day but disappeared in the clouds, never to be seen again, until Mallory's body was found in 1999 at 8,155 meters on the north face. Tenzing Norgay and Edmund Hillary made the first official ascent of Everest in 1953, using the Southeast Ridge route. Norgay had reached 8,595 meters the previous year as a member of the 1952 Swiss expedition. The Chinese mountaineering team of Wang Fuzhou, Gonpo, and Ku Yinhua made the first reported ascent of the peak from the North Ridge on the 25th of May 1960. The Nepali name for Everest is Sagarmatha, meaning head in the Nepali language. The Tibetan name for Everest is Omolangma, whose pinyin form is Zhamalingma. While other Chinese names exist, include Shengmu Feng, these names largely phased out from May 1952 as the Ministry of Internal Affairs of China issued a decree to adopt Zhu Mu Lang Ma Feng as the sole name. Documented local names include Dodingha, but it is unclear whether it is commonly used. In the late 19th century, many European cartographers incorrectly believed that a native name for the mountain was Gaurishankar, a mountain between Kathmandu and Everest in 1849. The British Survey wanted to preserve local names if possible. In the early 1960s, the Nepali government coined the Nepali name Sagarmatha or Sagarmatha. In 1802, the British began the Great Trigonometric Survey of India to fix the locations, heights, and names of the world's highest mountains. Starting in southern India, the survey teams moved northward using giant theodolites, each weighing 500 kilograms and requiring 12 men to carry, to measure heights as accurately as possible. They reached the Himalayan foothills by the 1830s. But Nepal was unwilling to allow the British to enter the country due to suspicions of their intentions. Several requests by the surveyors to enter Nepal were turned down. The British were forced to continue their observations from Terai, a region south of Nepal which is parallel to the Himalayas. Conditions in Terai were difficult because of torrential rains and malaria. 3 survey officers died from malaria while 2 others had to retire because of failing health. Nonetheless, in 1847, the British continued the survey and began detailed observations of the Himalayan peaks from observation stations up to 240 kilometers distant. Weather restricted work to the last 3 months of the year. In November 1847, Andrew Wagg, the British Surveyor General of India, made several observations from the Savajpur station at the east end of the Himalayas. Kanchenjunga was then considered the highest peak in the world, and with interest, he noted a peak beyond it, about 230 kilometers away. John Armstrong, one of Wagg's subordinates, also saw the peak from a site farther west and called it Peak B. Wagg would later write that the observations indicated that Peak B was higher than Kanchenjunga. But given the great distance of the observations, closer observations were required for verification. The following year, Wagg sent a survey official back to Terai to make closer observations of Peak B. But clouds thwarted his attempts. In 1849, Waugh dispatched James Nicholson to the area, who made 2 observations from Zirol, 190 kilometers away. Nicholson then took the largest theodolite and headed east, obtaining over 30 observations from 5 different locations, with the closest being 174 kilometers from the peak. Nicholson retreated to Patna on the Ganges to perform the necessary calculations based on his observations. His raw data gave an average height of 9,200 meters for peak B. But this did not consider light refraction, which distorts heights. However, the number clearly indicated that peak B was higher than Kanchenjunga. Nicholson